channel. It's Sophie. Today we're going to go through quotas. It's been really requested by a few of my students and it just covers the topic of protectionism in general. Have a look at the other video on the link below if you want to look at the previous tariff diagram that I've gone through, and that just also talks in general about the world supply and international trade. So that should give you quite a lot of foundations for this video if you're interested. Okay, in terms of a quota is a legal limit placed by the government on the quantity of imports allowed into the country. Usually a quota doesn't apply to everything, all goods and services coming into the country. Usually the government is very intentional that they want to put a quota on cars, a quota on clothing, something very, very, very specific. So usually placed on certain goods into the country, and the government it's up to them to decide exactly how many goods they will allow. So the quota can be any size, it just depends entirely on what the government wants. Alright, great. So in terms of a graph, what we're going to find is we're going to have this original world trade graph where we have the UK demand and supply curves, and they're going to interact with the world. And remember from the previous video that the world supply is going to be perfectly elastic. Okay, so let's have a go at drawing that. So we have, put this in white. It's a bit of a kind of a recap. So we've got the supply of the UK, the demand of the UK. If the UK traded in a closed economy, it didn't, face the competition with the world, it would just have created P1 and Q1. But unfortunately, that doesn't really happen because the UK now trades with the world. So when it trades with the world is usually in general a more efficient producer. There's hundreds of countries competing to be able to supply something, and generally they can supply it cheaper. And remember, they can supply any quantity really that the UK wants because there's just so many hundreds of countries producing this good. So unfortunately, the price of P1 just doesn't exist. And instead, the UK has to kind of accept that lower world price. So the UK is going to have to sell their goods to match the world price if they want to sell anything. So that hasn't changed. And we've discussed how, given this situation where the UK has to sell at P world, we've discussed how that's going to actually contract the supply. It's not very motivating for UK suppliers. They're only going to be able to supply Q1. They lack the motivation, and also the price is so low, it's very difficult for them to cover their costs of production. So originally, kind of before a quota, we have the UK supplies Q1. It's very little because the price is low. When the price is low, there's low motivation and low ability to cover costs. Okay, and then again, before the tariff, before the quota, the UK demands Q2. They demand a large amount because the price is low, and according to the income effect, the substitution effect, and diminishing marginal utility, that should be really motivating and to people to demand more. So there's actually a kind of an extension or an expansion in the quantity demanded because the price has decreased, and overall Q2 is what is demanded in the UK. So we have Q2 demanded and Q1 available, and we know that that's going to lead to QM being imported into the country. So overall, without a quota and in free trade scenario, there will be QM imported into the country, and this will be a fairly high amount because the price is low and demand is very high and supply is very low in the UK. Right, so what can a quota do? Quota is going to introduce a limit to the imports. So the imports can no longer be QM. That's just illegal. That's not going to happen anymore. Instead, now the government is going to apply QQ quota and is only going to allow QQ out of all the quantity of imports that wanted to be imported. So let's just say QM wanted to be imported, and then the government says, well, okay, I know 10 units want to be imported, I'm just only going to allow 4. So the government is only going to allow 4 units in this example, which is going to mean that what color is that purple color is going to be the quantity of imports. Now, QM2. So QM2 is the new imports and it equals exactly the quantity of the quota. Okay, so let's kind of check what's happened. So let's go through the UK suppliers. How does it impact them? So remember before these people have Q1 supplied at P-World, and with the quota, something really interesting is going to happen. It's going to turn out that the UK suppliers will supply more. They will do this because the total supply available is always going to be the supply available in the UK plus the quota. So I'm going to draw like the total supply curve. And the total supply curve is going to be the sum of the UK supply curve and the quota. And we know the quota is this purple bit. So at P-World, the UK supply curve is here. And I'm going to just add on the quota, which is like all of this distance there. And so this is going to be the new location of the new total supply curve. And the quota is the same, however much the UK supplies. So the quota is still like this full distance wherever you are. So really, this UK supply curve, we're going to add on the quota at every point along this. And that's going to be how much can be imported into the country plus what the UK supplies. So this is going to be kind of like the total supply available in the country. This is like this is S2. Because there's more supply available, this is going to result in a change in the price. Now, supply equals demand at that yellow dot. This is going to be the new price of P2. And maybe I shouldn't label that as P2. This is going to be the new quantity sold of Q3. So overall, what's happened to the UK suppliers? UK suppliers, as we've discussed, had Q1 before. And now, as the total amount of units sold are Q3, and only Qm2 have been imported, the UK has actually supplied more than before. Now, the UK supplies Q3 minus Qm2. So they supply everything that was not imported, and that makes sense. I'm going to highlight what the UK supplies. Let's put it in bright yellow. Out of the Q3 units sold, out of all these Q3 units sold, the UK supplied the initial units Q1 and supplied everything that the world couldn't supply. So all of that yellow quantity has been supplied by the UK. Those are the UK supplies. Let's think about the impact on the UK consumers. UK consumers previously paid P World, and now they pay P2. They pay P2 because the UK suppliers saw, well, there's not going to be enough supply available compared to what people want. Remember, at P World, the supply available was all of this much, but people wanted all of this much. So there was still excess demand, and as a result, the price was able to increase. The UK suppliers said, well, I'm not going to face any competition from the world anymore. I know they're only allowed to import QM2. So in that case, I'm just going to raise the price because I know I can and I want to. So they're going to raise the price to P2. And because they've raised the price to P2, consumers are worse off. They're going to have a reduction in their consumer surplus. Consumers are worse off also because consumers can buy less. Remember previously at P World they could buy Q2. Now at P2 they can buy only Q3 in total. So consumers have higher prices and less quantity. And we know that that's going to be pretty upsetting to them. That's going to be pretty bad to them. And we'll look at the consumer surplus and things in a moment. Kind of clear this up in the graph. Okay, let's think about the government. The government is, they've introduced a legislation. But other than that, there's been no impact to them because there's no revenue that can be generated from a quota, no revenue that they had before, so they're pretty neutral. They haven't really gained or benefited from this. Right, so let's tackle these areas. Let's tackle the consumer surplus. Let's look at it before and let's look at it afterwards. I've got to get really good at the definitions. I'm just going to type it here. So it's the difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay and what they actually pay for all the units they buy. So before the quota, what they were willing and able to pay is shown by the demand in the UK. And what they actually pay is shown by P World, and the units they buy, they were able to buy either from the world or from the UK, but they were able to buy Q2. So let's look at this area. I'm going to have to make a little bit of space here. Okay, let's put this in green. So we're looking at the difference between P World, which is here, and the demand curve, not going anywhere more than Q2. So Q2 is like the limit. All of this green triangle was the consumer welfare before. Okay, after the quota, what happens? What they're willing and able to pay is still the demand in the UK. What they actually pay is now P2. And the units they buy is now Q3. So let's take a look at this one. Let's put this in a lighter shade of green. Let's go for, doesn't look like green. Difference, but okay, they look too similar. Going in white, P2, and the demand curve, which is all of this white triangle. Afterwards, consumer surplus is only the white area. Okay, so overall, consumer welfare, consumer surplus has gone from the green area to the white area. So clearly it's been worse off. consumer surplus, if you look very, 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 very carefully, you will see that consumer surplus will have fallen by all of this pink area. So consumers are worse off. UK consumers are worse off. Let's look at the producer surplus. Intuitively, we think that UK producers will be better off because they are selling at a higher price and they're also selling more units. But let's look at the definition and just make sure that we've got the producer surplus drawn well. So it's the difference between the price they were willing and able to sell for, and the price they actually sold for all units that they sold. Okay, so let's look at the producer surplus before the quota, the willing and able to sell at. This is shown by S1 or SUK in this case. And the price they paid was, price they sold for, was P, made that twice, was P Weld. And the quantity the UK producers sold was actually only Q1. Kind of running out of colors here. But yeah, maybe let's just do a new graph. So originally at P World, the UK was only selling Q1. How did you know that? Remember, you went across from the price, you find the UK supply curve, and that's the quantity. So this means that the UK producer surplus was the difference between the price and what they were willing to sell for, which is your supply curve, which gives you this white area. So producer surplus equals this white area. After the quota, they're willing and able to sell on the supply curve of the UK. They have nothing to do with the quota, so I'm not going to look at the new supply curve. Don't look at the new supply curve because this includes the world. Okay, and then the price they sold for was P2, and then the units they sold was Q3. Let's kind of refresh where all these things were. So this was S2 that we're going to ignore, but we do need to find this to find the quantity that the UK sells. Remember, the UK sells Q3. The UK sells Q3 because that's where the supply hits a demand. Sorry, they sell Q3, but remember, we need to minus the quantity of imports. The quantity of imports is this yellow Qm2. The difference between that. Okay, so the UK now sells, put this in green, Q1, and then they also sell Q2 to Q3. And then the price they are selling these for, didn't put the price, is P2. So the UK is going to sell these units for P2. As a result, their producer surplus is going to be the difference between the price and the UK supply curve. I know that the UK also sells these units here, but I know that that's not been, that I've already taken that into account already. That area is going to be like the same one as this bit. So the UK producer surplus is now this green bit, which means they've added on this green area of producer surplus. So producer surplus has increased by the shaded green area. Okay, so let's take into account what's happened. Remember, consumer surplus has fallen by the white area. That was like their welfare loss. And producer surplus has increased by the green area. And then if we take these two diagrams together, oh, that was pink. If we take these two diagrams together, we get consumer surplus has fallen by all of this pink area. That was bad. So I'm going to put it as an unhappy face. That was lost. At the same time, we gained some welfare. Producers gained some welfare. Producers gained all of this bit back. So overall, we're still left with a welfare loss. But that is that bit here, all that welfare has been lost. So overall, quotas reduce welfare to society by the orange area. And this is, as we said, because the consumers lose out and the producers gain, but it's not enough of a gain to make things better. So the overall conclusion of a quota is it harms social welfare. It's not that simple though, it benefits producers. When it benefits producers, remember the producers, let me scroll up, producers are selling more. Producers sell more. They sell Q3 minus Qm2. That's going to help them gain economies of scale and maybe make some more competitive products, and that could improve the macro economy later, as well as maybe attract more investment, and over time actually possibly make the country overall better off. But it really does harm consumers, at least in the short term. It harms consumers because of the higher prices from P1 to P2. They also have less quantity, so less choice. Quantity falls from Q2 to Q3. And this makes consumers worse off. Maybe there's less pollution, I guess you could say, because there's less transportation, more buying locally. But that's the main picture of a quota. So I hope you found that useful. Overall, your quota graph is I guess this one. You don't have to draw all the welfare losses kind of all the time. But be sure to show that supply curve shifting out because you've added on the quota. So supply will always be UK supply plus quota supply. And remember that leads to a higher price, lower quantity, bad for consumers, good for producers. You'll have to think if that overall leads to a better improvement in the macro economy or not. Hopefully that was useful to get you kind of a quick introduction to a tricky topic. And hopefully now when you read about this on the internet and you do some practice questions, things will be a little bit more clear and you'll have a good base to work from. And let me know if you like this video. Click the subscribe button at the bottom, that red button there, that will notify you of any other videos. And please hit the like button if you like this, and leave a comment if you have any suggestions, any feedback, as well as any other ideas for another video. Okay, so thank you very much for watching and investing your time in this video. Hopefully it was worthwhile, and thank you so much. Bye!